The gentle hum of the city buzzed through the early morning as Wang Yibo stood by the window of their once-shared apartment. The rays of sunlight kissed his cheeks, but he felt no warmth. The world had not stopped turning, though his own world had crashed just hours before. It had been a peaceful night until Xiao Zhan walked in, his face pale, voice trembling, hands clenched into shaking fists. Yibo had immediately sensed something was wrong. There was a storm in Xiao Zhan's eyes that he couldn't read, a heaviness in his breath that didn't belong to the man he knew so intimately. "Yibo, we need to talk." Those words, so simple, so ordinary, felt like the death knell to a symphony Yibo had spent years composing with a man he loved. Still, he nodded, his heart thudding against his chest like a war drum. Xiao Zhan sat down on the edge of the couch they cuddled on countless nights before, his gaze avoiding Yibo's eyes. "There's no easy way to say this," Xiao Zhan began, "but I need to tell you the truth. I got someone pregnant." The words shattered the room. For a second, all Yibo could do was stare. The silence screamed louder than any rage could have. It felt like the walls had fallen in, like every beautiful moment they had built. The laughter, the whispered promises, the late-night kisses, all turned to ash. "What?" Yibo's voice came out like a whisper, fragile and desperate. "I didn't mean for it to happen," Xiao Zhan said, voice cracking. "It was during our break. That week, when we argued and I left for Chengdu. I was drunk, confused, and hurting. I met her at a party. I swear it meant nothing. But now, she's pregnant. She's keeping the baby." Yibo took a step back, almost as if the physical distance would help lessen the pain. "You got someone pregnant?" he repeated, the words acidic on his tongue. Xiao Zhan stood up, panicked. "Yibo, please. I'm telling you because I love you. I didn't want lies between us. I was going to handle it quietly, but I couldn't bear the thought of hiding this from you. Then maybe you should have thought of that before you slept with someone else." Yibo's voice finally rose, sharp and wounded. His body trembled, not from rage, but from heartbreak. He had given everything to this man. Every soft glance, every ounce of trust. And now, this betrayal came with consequences they could never undo. Their relationship had never been easy. Two stars orbiting the same sky, constantly under public scrutiny. They kept their love hidden in shadows for years, whispered promises behind closed doors, stolen moments between tight schedules. But it was real, raw, deep. They had made it through so much: gossip, separation, career demands, fan expectations. Yibo had believed that what they had was unshakable. But now, "I need time," Yibo finally said, trying hard not to let the tears fall. His chest felt tight, like his heart was being slowly torn from his ribs. Xiao Zhan stepped forward, desperate. "Please don't walk away from us. I'll take responsibility for the child, but you are the one I love. You've always been the one." "But it's not just about love anymore," Yibo cried. "It's about trust, and you broke it." Paparazzi caught a glimpse of Wang Yibo at the airport alone, dressed in black, face hidden behind a mask and cap. He looked broken. Fan accounts buzzed with speculation. Rumors ran wild. But no one knew the truth that burned inside his heart. He retreated to his mother's house in Luoyang. There, surrounded by childhood memories and the silence of rural skies, Yibo tried to breathe again. He thought about their late-night talks under the stars. The way Xiao Zhan would brush his fingers through Yibo's hair to help him sleep. The time they promised to grow old together, away from cameras, maybe on a farm, maybe by the sea. It all seemed like a distant dream now. Each time his phone buzzed, his heart twisted. Xiao Zhan messaged every day. "I miss you. Please talk to me. You're still my future." But Yibo couldn't bring himself to reply. Xiao Zhan struggled. While Yibo vanished from the limelight, Xiao Zhan stayed in the city. He met with the mother of the child, a woman named Lian. She didn't ask for anything. No money, no relationship. Only to raise the baby and be left alone. Xiao Zhan agreed, but guilt plagued him. His heart belonged to someone else, and he feared he had lost Yibo for good. He canceled his upcoming drama, went silent on social media. Fans worried, but only a handful knew he was crumbling from within. One rainy evening, He posted a cryptic message on Weibo. Even the stars we held now fall from my sky. It trended for hours. But he didn't care about the attention. All he wanted was Yibo. 3 weeks after their last conversation, Xiao Zhan received a letter. It was handwritten, folded neatly, and smelled faintly like the lavender Yibo always sprayed on his pillows. I've stared at this page for hours. I don't even know how to begin because part of me is still in shock, and the other part is grieving. I grieve for the version of us that didn't make it. I loved you in ways I never thought possible. I let you into my soul, even when the world told me it was dangerous. I imagined a life with you, quiet mornings, shared toothbrush cups, adopted dogs, old age. But your actions, they broke something fragile in me. Something I'm not sure I can rebuild. I don't hate you. I wish I could, but I love you too much for that. What hurts the most isn't the child. It's that you didn't think of us when you were with her. You let pain and distance justify a mistake that can't be erased. I hope the child grows up loved, even if it's not by both parents. I hope you find peace. And I hope one day, maybe years from now, we'll look at each other and smile without pain. But for now, I need to let you go. Don't wait for me. Xiao Zhan read the letter 100 times. Each word felt like a dagger, yet also a balm. Yibo didn't hate him. That was a small mercy. But he was letting go, and that was a true heartbreak. He held the letter to his chest and cried for hours, not just because he lost Yibo, but because he had destroyed something precious with his own hands. Wang Yibo stood on a small stage in Tokyo, receiving an international award for his recent film. The applause echoed, the lights beamed, but his smile never reached his eyes. Later that night, he sat alone in his hotel room, watching the city blink outside. He pulled out his phone, opened a secret album, just pictures of Xiao Zhan. Some silly, some romantic, some blurry with laughter. He didn't delete them. He never would. Love like that doesn't die. It just lives quietly, waiting, aching. Meanwhile, in Beijing, Xiao Zhan sat in a quiet nursery. His child, tiny, peaceful, slept in his arms. He looked down and smiled softly, whispering to the baby, "Your other father would have loved you too, in another lifetime." And so, the story of Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo didn't end with fireworks or fairy tales. It ended with tears, with silence, with love that couldn't survive the weight of reality. But it was love nonetheless. And sometimes that's the most painful kind of all. The winter chill had begun to creep into Beijing, dusting rooftops with the first snow of the season. Xiao Zhan stood quietly by the window of his apartment, the same one he once shared with Wang Yibo. A soft cry echoed from the nursery, snapping him out of his daze. He walked in slowly, lifting his baby son into his arms. The child, only a few months old, stared up at him with wide, curious eyes, innocent, unaware of the turmoil that brought him into the world. "Your eyes?" Xiao Zhan whispered, brushing his fingers across the baby's forehead. "They remind me of someone I lost." It was true. In those eyes, he often caught glimpses of Yibo. Perhaps not in features, but in spirit. That steady gaze, that unspoken depth, it haunted him. Wang Yibo paced back and forth on the set of his latest drama. The director had called for a break, but he couldn't concentrate. His phone buzzed again, another tabloid headline. Xiao Zhan seen with infant son. Fans speculated about identity of the child's father. His stomach twisted. It had been 6 months, but the wound hadn't closed. He had tried to move on, immerse himself in work, traveled, smiled on camera. But behind closed doors, grief clung to him like a second skin. One evening, after returning to his hotel room, he finally gave in to the ache. He poured himself a glass of wine, turned on their favorite playlist, and stared at the photo album again, the secret one. There they were, Xiao Zhan asleep on his shoulder after a long flight, Xiao Zhan holding a dumpling with a proud grin, Xiao Zhan in his hoodie, brushing his teeth next to him. Memories that once made him smile now burned like acid, and yet he couldn't delete them. Wang Yibo remembered every second of that conversation, like it was tattooed into his soul. Xiao Zhan's confession, the way his voice cracked when he said, "I got someone pregnant." The numbness, The disbelief. The utter collapse of everything Yibo thought was solid. Do you know what it felt like? Yibo had said then, trembling. To love someone so fiercely that you'd shield them from everything, only to learn you weren't enough to stop them from breaking you. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking, Xiao Zhan had pleaded. I never stopped loving you. But you did stop respecting us, Yibo had whispered. The silence that followed was unbearable, like the space between two cliffs where lovers once stood, now divided by a canyon of betrayal. Back to the present. Yibo sat on a park bench in Kyoto, bundled in a hoodie and cap, unnoticed. Around him, children played in the snow. Parents watched lovingly. He thought about the child that wasn't his, but could have been part of his life if things had been different. He wondered what kind of father Xiao Zhan had become. He could picture it too easily. Xiao Zhan singing lullabies in a soft voice, holding tiny fingers with trembling awe, weeping in the dark when the world grew too heavy. Part of him ached to be there, but the greater part of him couldn't forget the betrayal. Fate, however, was cruelly poetic. 3 months later, Wang Yibo returned to China for an award ceremony. He wasn't supposed to attend, but his manager convinced him. It would be good for his image, they said. He didn't expect to see Xiao Zhan there, but there he was, dressed in black, elegant as ever, standing by the exit alone. Yibo froze. He wanted to run, to vanish before their eyes met, but it was too late. Xiao Zhan turned, and time collapsed. They stared at each other in silence. The noise of the crowd faded. For a second, it was just them. "Hi," Xiao Zhan said, his voice barely audible. "Hi," Yibo replied, his throat tight. There were 1,000 things unsaid between them. Yibo wanted to scream. He wanted to ask, why her? Why then? Why us? Instead, Xiao Zhan took a slow breath. He's 3 months old now. He cries at night, but smiles in the morning. I named him Howrin. Yibo nodded, blinking back tears. That's a good name. They stood like that for a moment. 2 broken men who once dreamed of forever. Do you hate me? Xiao Zhan finally asked. No, Yibo whispered, but I don't know if I can ever trust you again. The pain in Xiao Zhan's eyes was unmistakable. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I still love you, even if you never come back, even if I have to raise him alone. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. Yibo's lip quivered. He turned away before he cried. Take care of yourself, John. And of him. Then he walked away. Later that night, Xiao Zhan wrote a letter he never intended to send. Dear Yibo, some nights, I hold Howrin and whisper your name. I tell him about a man with fire in his heart and lightning in his soul. I tell him you would have been the kind of father who danced with him in the kitchen, who taught him how to ride a bike, who would kiss his forehead goodnight. I made a mistake that changed everything. But please know, I would give anything to go back to that night and choose differently. I'm not writing to win you back. I know I don't deserve that. I'm writing because love like ours doesn't die. It just learns how to live in the shadows. And even from the shadows, I will love you forever. John ***. He folded the letter, placed it in a box with their old Polaroids, and locked it away. In a quiet bookstore in Seoul, Wang Yibo browsed the shelf on photography. A child's laughter echoed behind him. He turned instinctively and froze. There stood Xiao Zhan, holding a small boy, smiling softly. They locked eyes. And for the first time in a long time, neither of them looked away. No words were exchanged. But maybe, just maybe, the universe wasn't done with them yet.